Good morning, everyone, and sorry for the couple-week long hiatus. It's been a while since I've done a video, and where we last left off in my story was when I moved to East District, or EDS. Um, it was from the North End to EDS, and it was my second time, or no, third, I guess, other than my first year in 5. Working in the suburbs, and I was fortunate enough to have an old partner, an old friend who was a supervisor in East District, and another old partner and old friend, a former shift mate of mine who was in HR, and the stars aligned, as they say, and I was fortunate enough to go to a shift that was a little bit short. And I was also fortunate enough to have my best friend on that shift, and we hadn't worked together in years, and to be the senior guy again. So for me, that meant being once again surrounded by great people, which just is ever more important when you're in the latter stages of your career. It's just more important than the work you do or the unit you're in. You're surrounded by good people. You could be shoveling shit, and it's fun. And so yeah, and I was also fortunate, though I didn't know the shift sergeant very well. I only knew of her, to be going to a shift, commanded or supervised by someone who is no drama, no nonsense, no bullshit, intelligent. Someone that, sorry, there's a fly there. Someone that, you had to talk to get to know them. Otherwise, they might seem quite unpersonal, or cold. But someone who you could run things by, and you were confident in their assessment of a situation, and giving the right answer, and being thoughtful and very experienced investigatively. And so I don't ever think I thank that person, but you know who you are, and so thank you. And like 10 years ago, I might have thought that kind of supervisor was cold and not very fun, but you realize the importance of somebody solid like that, in terms of running a shift well. I'll call you on something when you do poorly, and congratulate you when you do well. And policing in the North End was and is still my favorite area, because it's the most fun, and it was a place where I could really be myself in terms of my previous work experience, and watch other young guys and gals do the same. So the switch to the suburbs was different once again, a huge district in terms of just area, and you could be in very, very different neighborhoods, minutes away, and then have to go to the other end of the world, to a different part of the same district for a very different type of crime, or a very different type of complainant or victim. It had a real good mix, and though it certainly wasn't as busy in EDS in terms of call volume, and for the most part the call types were different than the North End, but there was and is a ton of good work to do there. Oftentimes in a quiet suburb district, way too many people fall into the trap of it's quiet, so let's not do anything, and they bitch or moan and complain about, well, I want to be downtown, or I want to be in the North End, and it's boring here, but they don't wind up hunting or looking for work, or if they don't know, there's sometimes on a shift there's not enough senior guys who can tell them, here's where you go, here's what you can do, here's what to look for. But it was a fantastic area to work in, and it didn't take long, even though a lot of the time I was, because I'm senior, I was acting supervisor, it didn't take long to see not just the divisional change in the type of work, but how policing was changing. So whereas, in the North End years before, you might have a lot of drug dealers and gangbangers and do a lot of traffic stops and, proactive, or just real police work. This was an area and a time where we started to see I started to see some real different things. And it was spotted uh, before I spotted it. My best friend spotted it, and he, um, figured things out, knew the lay of the land, and those things were really like 3 to 4 different topics, and stolen bikes, meth use, meth heads, as we often call them. It's not a politically correct term, but this is not a politically correct time, and our profession often isn't. But it's the people themselves that earn their monikers and their behavior, criminal and otherwise. So we saw a real tie between people stealing bikes, that is, my friend did, and a tie between that and meth use and property crime. And so you could, after a while, it became very, very easy to spot those people and to learn of their locations, their haunts, the houses they hung out at. And rare is a time where you didn't spot check someone on a bike, where they didn't have a warrant, where they weren't carrying meth, where they didn't have break-in tools, where they didn't have a machete handle sticking out of their backpack. I mean, I myself saw that like 6 or 7 times, and the other guys that were out looking and spot checking those guys were seeing it almost every time too. And so I want to say that there were probably about a half dozen addresses in the St. Boniface and South St. Vital areas alone where we could regularly go, and someone was leaving or going into that house. They were on a stolen bike. They had some meth. They had break-in tools and or a warrant. And so it really focused on these shitty individual houses, not like a cluster of homes or a bunch of homes in one neighborhood that were causing problems for the entire neighborhood that we're in. And neighbors were frequently calling the police about these addresses, detailing the related drug dealing and property crime complaints that were going on there. And so, it really just was a matter of paying attention to those houses and harassing the fucking shit out of the occupants for everything from traffic violations to intelligence reports, to recovering stolen property, stolen motorcycles, stolen vehicles, and stolen construction equipment. And another real big one, which was, a growing trend at the time of that 2017, 2018, at least it was sort of just up and coming in Winnipeg that I had never seen before, was catalytic converter thefts. Because, another thing that a lot of these bike thieves and meth users often had on them were sawzalls. They would break into a fucking garage or break into a construction vehicle and steal that. And they would go underneath vehicles and saw the catalytic converters off. Takes a few seconds. And it was quick work and easy money. And they'd be right along on their stolen bikes, taking those catalytic converters that they'd cut off and getting 50, 100, 200 bucks, depending on the type or model, and taking them to auto wreckers in the Transcona area and elsewhere, or to houses that fence stolen property in general, trading them for meth most often, or just taking the cash and using it to do whatever with. But you know, a night or an evening, even sometimes even day shift, rarely went by when you could encounter, if you were looking, one of those individuals, and it led to an arrest. And so it was just something that kept you hopping, and it was super productive and super fun. So again, different things to focus on than years before. And those people involved in those types of crimes often lived in the tent cities. And, you know, it's 2025 now, so 8 years later, who knows exactly how much it's grown. But I feel confident saying it's, you know, tenfold, 10 times as much. So people would often call and complain about those people living down by the river in tents and makeshift shacks and whatnot, and they stayed there year round during the worst conditions. And it is a huge problem for a lot of reasons. Oftentimes, you know, there were walking trails or bike trails nearby, and once the people living in those tent cities take up the area, it's no longer safe for kids to ride their bikes through there, or for families to go walking nearby, or if, you know, for people on their own walking their dog, because the people that live there committed crimes daily. And not only that, there's tons of garbage, tons of dangerous and hazardous materials, used needles, and tons of stolen property. And I can't think of one encampment where there wasn't someone without a warrant, where there wasn't stolen property from a nearby residential garage or vehicle break and enter. And you know, it was often our job, whether we were GP, General Patrol, or CSU's, community support units, where you were tasked to go and clean those areas up. And that involved, you know, dealing with the people there, any crimes or any investigations that came out of contacting the people there. But also, I mean, the police aren't equipped, nor is it our job to literally clean up all the shit that's there, mattresses and wood and stolen bike parts and burnt copper wire remnants. You know, so you'd have to get other areas of the city involved, wait for them to come down. So, you know, camps could take up a lot of our time, where that could have been better spent responding to calls for service or proactively looking to prevent crimes from happening. And the other thing that made that a particular challenge was the lack of direction and impotent response on the part of the city of Winnipeg. Because quite often, you know, bus shacks that were turned into glass and metal hotels would have couches in there, 5, 6, 7, 8 people in there, full of garbage. So actually, good law-abiding citizens who were wanting to use the bus and have a clean bus shelter couldn't, and they had to be outside in the elements because, of course, it's not safe and it's quite scary for them to approach and deal with the people that were in there. And it was a daily problem. Specific bus, probably 2 or 3 in the EDS area alone, maybe 4. Where you could dismantle it, and later that day they're back in there hours later with more garbage and more stuff. And of course, for the city people who come, or transit people who come to clean it up, it's not safe for them to go in there, and it's not their job. And those places tied up police resources and other first responder, paramedics and firefighter resources, because you'd have ODs in there, you had the occasional death in there. And, you know, so we are, by our mandate, have to go and deal with those people. But the other issue is the fact that they are homeless, and we can go and kick them out of there. But we had zero to little direction from the city as to what options we can give them to go. So it's fine to go and displace someone, when they're not allowed, shouldn't be in a certain area. But then, because we're the ones doing that, the city has to give us directions and say, okay, you guys can go to this shelter or that shelter. And sometimes a lot of those emergency shelters are full, or you might need a low amount of cash, $5 to $10 or something like that, to stay. And of course, a lot of those people don't have that. So the city also like sort of had this unofficial don't touch them, don't bother them, don't evict them, including from bus shelters. And it's like, fuck, well, what about the good tax-paying citizens who need to use those shelters, who want to, who those places are truly intended for? You know, you don't want us to deal with the problem, but then you have people who are deserving to use it who can't. And it's not safe for them to even be nearby waiting for the bus for fear of getting accosted or robbed or assaulted in some way. And those sorts of things are on the rise. So, you know, you can't have tell the police go deal with that problem and then not have a solution for them to move the problem to. Because that's the giant part of what we're doing, is moving something from one place to another. So, you know, empower us to be able to deal with it effectively, not just say, go fix that. So, and I don't know if things are better now in terms of that. You know, I would think that having an area owned by the city that is set aside, or several areas, strictly for the homeless people, because there just aren't enough buildings or shelters, excuse me, to accommodate them, and to have an area where they can have their tent cities set up, where the police, when running into them, whether for a criminal matter or not, can tell them, hey, here's where you can go and stay. So, you know, that's got to be something that's solid, consistent, and a good concrete option for us to use. And but that was a huge problem. Anyway, so yeah, we did that kind of work, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I love seeing other guys get excited about it. And I love to see that kind of proactive work being taught by other senior members on the shift, because you don't want a young or a junior person to get bored quickly, or to not be inspired, or to not have fun with that at work, so that they're motivated to, you know, not just respond to a call when it does happen, but to go out and look for shit before it does happen. And you know, my best friend had a profound impact on spreading that proactive, exciting, and good work, and dealing with the stolen bikes in particular, and dealing with making a real connection between the meth user and the stolen bike thief. You know, he put a whole package together, and it's a large part of an example and a reason that he got promoted to patrol sergeant. Lord knows it certainly wasn't because of his fucking personality or his fondness for the chain of command, but his work. You know, I can think of probably 6 junior guys, recruits, that benefited because of his motivation and teaching to others, and that's what it's all about. So we're getting close to the 20-minute mark, and you know, I had a lot of great partners. I had a couple shit ones, and great supervisors, shit ones, both in GP and in CSU. I worked there for a year, and so I think the next video will, in my story, will likely have to do with 2 particular moments of tragedy while I was at work. Both of them in East District. Both of them very personal, and I'll get into that next week, because it's important stuff for me to talk about, and it's important stuff to be an example to show the junior guys how to cope, and gals, how to cope with that kind of shit, because we can't let it, though it will affect us, of course. Um, we can't let it ruin our enjoyment for the job, and yeah, having a good time. So take care. Um, if you're ever having any issues or feeling shitty because of all the crap that we see, all the thousands of traumatic incidents um, that we go over the course of a career, don't ignore it. Um, Talk to someone. If not a BHU, behavioral health unit peer, or the staff in BHU itself. There's some wonderful people there who are well trained and genuine and great to talk to. But if not, seek counseling. Seek someone that you're comfortable with talking to. And if it's ever a crisis moment where you're feeling not well and not safe, and you might not, you know, um, have good regard for your safety and well-being, call 911, call 988. Ain't no fucking shame in it. Look after yourself, because your days off and your retirement are more important than anything you do on the job. Take care, guys. Love you. Bye.